To your mind, what do you see as the key challenges from a regulatory perspective that are confronting the industry in 2017?
Well, the biggest issues that we've got to grapple with is going to be how we deal with the question of residues of cargoes washing up on beaches in Europe. This is something that's had a huge political impact, and we're being pressed to find some sort of solution to it, which the industry is, of course, happy to do. We don't want to see cargo on beaches any more than anybody else, but we want to make sure that whatever solution is found is practical and can be implemented. The concerns we have is whether the port side, if you like, will play its part as well as the industry side. If we're going to have increased pre-wash, that's absolutely fine as long as it's applying to everybody equally. But if the facilities within ports are not available for that, then that is a major problem.
What sort of dialogue are you having with the ports?
At the moment, we're not dealing with any individual ports. The issue we have is that a lot of the cargoes that will be affected by new pre-wash requirements are going into ports. Well, this is an issue that the pre-wash requirements don't currently apply, so the ports don't need to have such facilities. The question is whether they're going to have them once they need to have them, and that there is a great fear that that may well not be the case, particularly in parts of the developing world, where a great deal of the cargoes that are likely to be affected by this regulation when it comes into force are situated.
Now, Janet, over the years we've talked of many different regulatory issues. Some of them don't go away. I'm of course thinking about ballast water for one.
Well, ballast water, if you'd asked me what the biggest challenge for the industry as a whole will be, then obviously that it's going to be the ballast water requirements that are coming into force later this year. We're going to be discussing at the MEPC in July a proposal to try and stagger the effective dates. Whether we get through with that, we don't know. But owners are particularly concerned at having to make a very, very large investment in equipment that it has been suggested may not actually be fit for purpose. This is the type approval guidelines. It's been suggested that some of the treatment systems that have already been type approved may not actually work properly in different water conditions, different temperatures, brackish water, etc., etc. And this is why the IMO has embarked on a programme to amend those guidelines for the type approval of products. What has been suggested by the industry is that in order to ensure that all ships are able to install equipment that they're confident will work in all conditions, that those ships that would be required to install a system in the first couple of years after September this year should be allowed to have an extra 4 or 5 years before they're required to install it, in order to make sure there is enough equipment that complies with the revised guidelines available on the market. That's what the discussions are going to be about in July, and we're hoping that we can get them through, rather than making ships install equipment let's say in 2018, that we don't know will definitely work in all conditions.
And finally, Janet, IPTA has always taken an active approach on the inert gas issue.
Yes, the regulations, the revised regulations for inert gas came into force at the beginning of last year, beginning of 2016. My understanding is that everything's working fairly smoothly on that front. It's always been a fairly controversial issue. There are safety issues on both sides. There are safety issues through not having inert gas. There are safety issues associated with having inert gas on a chemical tanker, when of course your inert gas medium is nitrogen. And chemical tankers, as we all know, involve a lot more tank entries than oil tankers. So that's always been the issue that's been at the forefront of these discussions, and we will be discussing the issue, I believe, a little bit later on when we look at the incident on the Bunga Alpinia.